3 hours of coding and development, shared a video about it, showed the world, blew up on Twitter, and then a week later you had an app that was kind of shipped out and stuff.
My name is Rexon. I'm currently a full-time high school student, but outside of high school, I'm like a tech entrepreneur and influencer. Currently, I have 15K followers on Twitter, and I basically build apps and build startups.
What you started doing in those 3 hours to produce it?
To this day, I've won 5 international hackathons hosted from competitions like Apple and ETH Global. I built a prototype in 3 hours. And I posted on Twitter. The next morning when I woke up, I just realized it blew up like crazy. It got like 300K views online. Right now, I've grew the app to 300K users. It's got a #1 product of the day on Product Hunt. And we're making around 1K a month in revenue. So it's been a crazy journey.
How did you put together the delivery process to kind of send it out to the world?
Put out the screen recording on Twitter. I mentioned I was 17 years old and I just went to bed.
That's cool. And so you said it blew up by the time you had woken up the next day. Where are you going to go with this app specifically?
I made a tweet on Twitter telling people I was going to sell my app. That post just blew up like crazy. Like right now it's like 2 million views. My DMs were like all flooded.
You've got a knack for getting your apps to do really well on Product Hunt. Any other tips for people on how to perform well with whatever they're going to Product Hunt with?
Right. That's a great question. So a lot of the things on Product Hunt is actually like a lot of the results on Product Hunt is actually, I call it.
All right. Welcome back to the Niche Pursuits podcast. My name is Jared Bauman. Today we are joined by Rexon Wong with Text Behind Image. Rexon, welcome.
Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me onto this podcast, man.
I am so excited to have you here. There's so many reasons why I say that. You've got such a cool story. And I can't wait for us to hear all about it. I think a lot of people listening are going to be intrigued by what you've built, how you've built it, what you've overcome along the way and where it's at, but also just the fact that you've done it at such a young age. And I think that's inspiring for a lot of people as well. So we'll get into all that, but maybe give us some backstory. Tell us who you are, what you're about, and how you came up with the idea for this app.
Yeah, sure. So maybe I'll talk about my background first, and then I'll talk about like the how I came up with the idea for the app. So basically right now, my name is Rexon. I'm currently a full-time high school student. At the time of the recording, I'm going to graduate in around 3 months from high school. But outside of high school, I'm like a tech entrepreneur and influencer. So I basically currently have 15K followers on Twitter, and I basically build apps and build startups outside of school. And while I build apps and build startups outside of school, I share my progress, I share my insights, and I just show people what I'm building on Twitter. And this allows me to build like audience and an audience of like similar people in my niche, and allow me to like meet so many inspirational people at such a young age through building apps, which is what I like. And I've been doing that for around a year right now. Prior to that, I've been doing a lot of coding in the past. And how I came up with the idea for a text behind image was it just came from some of my problems. So I still remember there was this one day in like September 2024, a couple months ago. I was like on the school bus going back home from school, and then I was watching some videos from one of my biggest inspirations, Daniel Dalen. So for those who don't know who Daniel Dalen is, he's basically a YouTuber who uploads like startup vlogs and showcases like a startup life, his journey, and documents like the process on YouTube. He's a really nice YouTuber, and one of the cool things about him is that for every single video that he posts, he uses the same kind of thumbnail. Like he has an image of himself, and he puts like some POV text, like the text says POV, but it's like behind his face. So this kind of effect is called text behind image. And I was like, damn, that is so cool. And I was like, I want to see if I can recreate this effect using my skills. But because I'm really bad at using Photoshop, and I couldn't figure out how to do that kind of thing with Photoshop, and it took me like a long time to finally figure out how to do that on other tools like Canva. So I thought about it, and I was like, there's no easy tool that allows me to create these kind of effects, these kind of text behind image effects. And I was like, if I can create it, then a lot of people who might be like newbies or just as worse as Photoshop like me wouldn't be able to create this kind of effect. So I decided to build this app. That was where the idea came from. And using a lot of AI tools at that moment, I built a prototype in 3 hours, and I posted on Twitter. The next morning when I woke up, I just realized it blew up like crazy. It got like 300K views online on my account. And I decided I needed to launch the app. And right now, I've grew the app to 300K users, and it's got a number one product of the day on Product Hunt. And we're making around 1K a month in revenue. So it's been a crazy journey that came from realizing a problem that I had.
I have to admit, I was thinking about you today as I was getting ready for the interview, and I was noticing on my iPhone that my background image has the
Right.
time. The time is exactly what you've done with your app. And I remember when I put the picture for my background image, it's of my wife and I, and I remember thinking, oh, that's so cool that the time kind of sits behind, the image. And I don't know how they do that, but they're Apple, so they know how to do everything. But here you've gone and come up with an app that does it. So anyways, it's pretty cool for those who are listening. Like, it puts that text behind the image. You can go to textbehindimage.app if you want to kind of follow along while we're having this conversation and look at it. Talk about, you said you built it in 3 hours or so. Without making this a podcast interview on coding and like the details, I'm trying to get maybe a little bit into your head about how you came up with the idea and then what you started doing in those 3 hours to produce it. And again, kind of talking to the person out there listening who sees things in the world, has ideas in the world, is trying to figure out how to come up with something that solves problems. I'm just wanting to hear maybe you unpack a little bit more of the details behind where you started going and diving into to create this.
Yeah, sure. So prior to like I've been building apps for like couple months at that time. And prior to build like the process of like building apps and startups, I've actually been participating in a lot of like coding hackathons. So to this day, I've won 5 international hackathons hosted from competitions like Apple and ETH Global, and combined with like prior coding knowledge, and also in like those hackathons, they usually have like a time limit. So usually you have to like build apps and build something to show to the judges in a short period of time. So these experiences taught me how to like build something kind of quick in like a short period of time. So I had like some coding knowledge in the past, and I had some hackathon experience. So using like some of my skills, I was able to just come up with like the ideation for how I was gonna tackle this app. And I decided that I was going to like use some of my technologies that I use most of the time, which is the technologies I use to build web apps. And for the reading the text behind the image design effect, I took inspiration for how I was going to do it on Canva. Basically, I found like a tool, like a coding tool that allowed me to remove the background off any image. So for example, like I take a picture and then it only takes the foreground. And then what I would do with that removed background image, the foreground, is that I would just smack it right on top of the original image. So it allows me to put a layer of text between the old image and the new removed background image. So that was how I came up with the process of how to create the text behind image design effect. And then the really cool thing while I was building this app is that around that time in September, there were a lot of like AI coding tools that were just popping up and like started to gain traction. One of them, and it's still really, really popular right now, is Cursor.ai. And I was just trying to like experiment of how fast I can create it. So with Cursor AI, I was able to like use AI to automate some of those like processes which usually were tedious. For example, like creating buttons, doing like the layout, stuff like that. Like it was able to do that in like a second, which otherwise would have took me probably like 5 minutes to, or maybe not 5 minutes, like a couple minutes to like rearrange and stuff like that. So it was able to look at my entire code base and suggest me some edits based on my entire code base, and it was able to really automate a lot of the coding process. So that's why at the end, it really only took me 3 hours to build this app, with the combination of like my prior coding experience, like my hackathon experience, and these new crazy AI tools like Cursor.ai.
Hey, Jared here. Just a quick word from our sponsor, and then we'll get right back to the episode. If you want to see one of Niche Site Lady's websites, she has a little case study going on. The site is called veganwins.co.uk, and she's sharing everything she's doing with it publicly. The site was built for her by web asset builders, and you can get one done for yourself as well. These social-first niche websites are designed to capture the attention of people on Facebook, complete with engaging content, visuals, and even newsletter lead magnets. Check out webassetbuilders.com if you'd like to learn more. They even have installment payment options available. You can use coupon code NICHEPURSUITS on checkout to get 20% off all offers. Again, that's webassetbuilders.com. Coupon code Niche Pursuits, all one word, for 20% off. All right, now back to the episode. Yeah, such a cool story. So you got it done. Talk about how you launched it. Talk about, you throw it up. It's an app, so how did you kind of get it out into the world in that first evening? And obviously, we'll talk a little bit about the aftermath and what came when you woke up the next day. But how did you put together the delivery process to kind of send it out to the world?
Yeah, sure. So at that moment when I finished building the app, I thought it looked really cool, but I wasn't like at that moment, I wasn't expecting it to just blow up. So what I did was that I did what I was doing for the past couple months. So the past couple months I've been building apps and software, and what I would usually do is I would screen record my app, sometimes with my face on it, and I would narrate myself using the app while the screen recording shows the app. So I was like, I'm just gonna do the same thing. So I just screen recorded my screen. I put my face on the corner, and I talked about how I built this app, and I showed people myself using the app. It was really, really casual. Like for the demo image, I used one of my favorite football players as the image. I still remember. And the difference while I was doing the screen recording of this app was that I mentioned I was a 17-year-old high school student, and I mentioned I built it in 3 hours. So I think these were some of the interesting factors while I was doing the recording. So that really, I think looking back, that really built up engagement for the recording, because people like to see interesting stuff. And being a 17-year-old high school student who's built an app in 3 hours, it's something that you don't hear every single day. So I basically just randomly put up screen recorded my app, and then as I did for the past couple months from that moment, I've been sharing my journey a lot on Twitter, documenting my process. And around that time, I've just been having around 700 followers on Twitter.
Okay.
So I just put out the screen recording on Twitter. Talks about I mentioned I was 17 years old, and then and I just went to bed.
That's cool. And so you said it blew up by the time you had woken up the next day. And so kind of for those of you who don't know, we've got a crazy time change here. So Rexon just got up, and I'm about to leave for the day, and so I can imagine people discovering this while you're in bed, over in the US, for example. That's probably right during prime time when people are up and using tools and on Twitter and stuff like that. What was the initial reception like? And I think I also want to know a little bit more about when you realized this was something that you needed to put more time and effort into to get into a more sophisticated, environment. We'll talk about product hunt and those sorts of things. And was that the first day that you realized that and you made that decision, or was that subsequently after that?
Yeah. So the morning when I woke up, I saw it hit 30K views, and I was like, this was by far the most views I ever had. Back then, 30K views meant the world to me. And I was seeing so many of my biggest influences when starting off in this journey DM me and replying to comments, and I was just seeing so many likes and stuff like that. So those numbers were just absolutely crazy. And I remember that morning, it was a Sunday, and I had to go out with my family. And I remember that day, throughout the entire time, going out with the family to do shopping, just having fun with the family. I was on my phone on Twitter, and I was just seeing every minute I was just getting 1,000 new views. And at that moment, it was just crazy. I never experienced this kind of virality before. And I think right now, I think that time I ended the day with 300K views. And I was thinking about it. I was the reception was just crazy. And because I built this app just for my own personal use as a personal tool to solve my problem, I was just seeing the reception and how many people liked it, and the virality it was getting. I was like, I have to launch this as an app. So I spent around a week just polishing things, making everything for example, making the code cleaner, making the user interface cleaner, just fixing those small launch details to try to polish and package it as a good product. And a week later, I launched the product.
Okay. So a week later, we got a product. 3 hours of coding and development. Shared a video about it, showed the world, blew up on Twitter. and then a week later you had an app that was kind of shipped out and stuff. When did Product Hunt enter in? Like, had you had a lot of time under your belt with the app at that point, or was Product Hunt pretty early on?
Yeah, so when I launched the app on Product Hunt, I actually launched it on the same day I officially launched the app.
Okay.
And some experience with Product Hunt in the past, because the at that time, the last time I did Product Hunt was like 1 or 2 months ago. I did Product Hunt for this app called VideoFast. I built this super easy to use online video editor, and I launched it on Product Hunt a couple of months from that time, and it's gotten #2 product of the day on Product Hunt. And I've been seeing a lot of like other like hackers on Twitter and other entrepreneurs on Twitter launch their own products on Product Hunt and get so much success. So it was like, with these two things, like my prior experience with launching a Product Hunt and just seeing how much success that some other people got on Product Hunt, I decided that it was like a natural step for me, like to just launch on Product Hunt. And the really interesting thing was that when I launched a Product Hunt, like I remember that was a Sunday when I launched on Product Hunt, and the next morning I was going to school on Monday, and I just opened my Twitter and I saw Ryan Hoover, the former CEO of the founder of Product Hunt and the former CEO of Product Hunt. He actually reposted my product, and at the time I was actually 16 years old. So he talked about I was like 16 years old from Hong Kong, and he just showed my product, and that was one of the big factors that led me to getting #1 product of the day on Product Hunt. And I remember I ended the day with like 800 upvotes. So Ryan Hoover upvoted and tweeted about my product. I tweeted about it on Twitter by posting a new demo about it. And I also mentioned I was 16 years old at the time. So I mentioned my age, and I mentioned like the speed I was building the app. So I think these interesting factors really got me to getting the upvotes and getting the initial traction for the app to help me get #1 product a day on Product Hunt.
For people who aren't super familiar with Product Hunt, maybe talk about why it's so valuable to get #1, #2, these sorts of things, and what kind of metrics did that end up driving in the first few weeks for the app?
Yeah, sure. So Product Hunt, for those who don't know, is basically a directory of products. So every single day, there are like new products listed on the site. You can list new products on the site. And then every 24 hours, people got to vote on the product they like the most. So they got to upvote on the product. And depending on the number of upvotes, your product can get like, there's going to be like a leaderboard that shows like how many upvotes each product got. And because Product Hunt is a site where people can discover a lot of new products, it gets like a lot of views daily. I don't know exactly how many views, but I know like it's super, super, super popular. And a lot of people go onto the site, and being #1, #2 product of the day, like being in those top positions, obviously allows you to like get your product to get noticed easier. And after getting #1 product of the day on Product Hunt, I remember that's where I got my first 1,000 users from, combined with like myself posting on Twitter and getting that kind of virality. And in a week, it managed to get 10K users.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Let's move, if we can, into the process that you went from 10K users to where you're at now, 300K users. You had mentioned at the beginning. I want to talk about a bunch of other stuff like monetization and just some of the other things you've been doing inside of it. But what was the growth path like? I mean, so it sounds like this launched in September, October 2024. We're
That's right.
recording this, end of February 2025 or so. So it's been, we'll call it 6 months or so since it's launched, right? Like, what's the growth path been like?
Yeah, so I've been really much of the growth and much of the new users came from like other influencers on like other platforms like Instagram and TikTok talking about my app. And I've just been insanely lucky that I've really gotten this kind of traction through like sort of word of mouth and like other influencers just like promoting my app. Because I've been documenting my process of like growing and showing people like some new features and stuff like that about text behind image. And I keep mentioning that I'm like 17 years old. So I guess like myself keep mentioning on Twitter, and this wow factor not only allowed me to grow my Twitter audience from at that time 700 followers to currently where I am with around 15K followers. I also gained a lot of traction for other influencers to repost my content on their own accounts. And really that's like where much of the growth has been from. Like whatever I talk about on Twitter, I leverage my existing audience to promote the app and try to get people to use it. And I also expand my audience through this way, through growing on Twitter and other influencers reposting the progress. And I realized that a lot of sometimes like when like a post like goes like super viral on Twitter, some people also go and try on my app, because on Twitter I wrote on my bio, I put the app in my bio, and when the post goes super viral, sometimes like in the six digit views, I remember like seeing the user count just grow by like 5K in the day. So just a combination of these factors, really through like organic ways. I never bought any ads and stuff like that. Really organically, I try my best to grow the app, and I've just been insanely lucky that some big influencers have reposted my content through the content that I post on Twitter.
You've talked a lot about it here in the interview, and I agree. Having followed along with what you've been doing just for a couple of weeks now, you and I just started interacting a couple of weeks ago to get this podcast set up. Like you do drive home this message, like, "Hey, I'm a high schooler. Like I put this together. I'm a high schooler." So you kind of have you understand that that's something that you think's unique, and that you've clearly picked up other people think it's unique, and then you've grown really quickly in terms of followers on Twitter. You're really helpful in terms of what you share. Like I've been following along, and you're just kind of sharing all the little stuff you do every day. What about for people trying to understand, at least for your journey, how you've gotten influencers to pay attention to you so much, so frequently, so often? Like, are there any other things that are involved in that you think have helped put you on the radar of these other kind of popular influencers sharing your content, which then goes on to letting your app grow so much?
Great question. Really, I think it's just boiled down to two things. Number one is just focus on your craft. What I mean by that is like I really focus on like building and coding my apps to try to maximize it and try to make it as nice as possible, because I really enjoy coding and I spend like a lot of time coding outside of school. And while I'm while I'm coding or even after I'm coding, I just share demos, share my progress. And I also mention I'm 17 and show my face, just try to be as authentic as possible. So through like really focusing on my craft, I'm able to like get like big influencers to take notice about like the cool stuff I build and some of the apps I build. And the second thing is really having that sort of like interesting factor about yourself and trying to be as authentic of that as possible. Because on Twitter, like the tech entrepreneurship community is so big. There are so many people in the community, and everyone is building super cool and super interesting stuff. So it's really important while you're building a personal brand on Twitter to really stand out. And I find one of the ways to really stand out is find that interesting factor about yourself. So it could be like age, it could be like background. So for me, I've really tried to position myself as a 17-year-old in high school. So I basically documenting this journey and show people like my updates and progress through positioning myself in this kind of persona. And I'll say that has allowed me to like get like other people really to take notice about my content. For just being authentic about like the wow factor about yourself, and focusing on your craft really boils down to these two things to help you grow on Twitter.
I've been wanting to ask about this for a while. It feels like a good time. Monetization of the app. You're really generous to tell us right out of the gate, hey, it's making about $1,000 a month. It's got 300,000 users. Like, talk through the options for people in terms of how to use the app and how you've chosen to monetize it. And if you've tested anything along the way, or you tried anything, if you've made any changes as it relates to the monetization.
Yeah, sure. So monetization actually came in like a month after I launched the app, and it just came like all by accident. So in like November 2024, I saw an email from Vercel. So Vercel is basically my servers. So that's how I host my app. Like I use Vercel to host my app, and it showed me that I had a like $200 bill. So at the time, it was like it was like really expensive. And I was like, what do I do about it? Like, how am I gonna get the money? And I just posted about it on Twitter because I thought it was gonna be interesting. And then that post just blew up like crazy. Like it got like right now it's like 1 million views, and a lot of helpful comments were suggesting how to tackle the problem. Some were suggesting like some like software alternatives to host, some cheaper alternatives. Some were suggesting about trying to monetize the app because at that time it was a free app,
Yes,
and I
it.
decided that I had to go and monetize this app. So the monetization was actually is still the same as when I started out with the monetization. I haven't really tried out different methods, but basically I have two plans. One of plan is the free plan, and one plan is the pro plan on text by image. So what the difference between the free plan and the pro plan is that on the free plan you can only generate up to two text behind image designs in a lifetime, while the pro plan gives you unlimited designs and also gives you unlimited fonts. So with this kind of like combination of like like differences of features and like a limitation on the main functionality, that's how I created like the differentiation between the free and pro plan. And the pro plan is actually pretty cheap. It's $4 a month. Is a recurring payment. So that's the subscription part of the monetization. But most of the monetization really comes from like sponsorships and advertisements, because I've been so active on Twitter, and I've managed to like many of people in my audience, or they have like their own apps, so they have their own software, and they might be looking to promote their own apps as well. So I've DM'd like a lot of people, showing them like text by image, like, hey, I have this site that gets around like 5K site views daily, and it's get a lot of traction. It's a great place to promote your business if you want. And through this kind of like ads subscriptions, I'm able to find through Twitter as well. I'm able to find like a lot of these people who might be interested in putting an ad or sponsorship on my site, and I just map the ad right on my site. So that's where I get most of the monetization from.
Sounds like you have both spot. I'm looking at your website. You got a tasteful sponsorship mentioned at the very top of the website. So I can kind of see that in action there. It sounds like you have some from sponsorship, some from people paying the $4 per month. What have you kind of learned in terms of user patterns, having the app now for 6 months, having it live? You talked about the server bill you got. Like, what does an average user kind of do? They come back. Are many of them sticky and come back? Is it usually a one-time use thing? I'm just curious about any patterns you've noticed with how people are using your app.
Right, sure. So I'll be really transparent about this. So out of my entire 300K user base, around like one third of them recurringly use the app until the free limit. So around one third of them use the app to create two text by image designs, and a lot of them run into the paywall. And that's like, this is my first real like monetization project, and that's when I got like really understand the simple lesson. And I'm sure many people in like doing business for many years know about this, but getting people to convert from users into customers is the real deal. Like, it's super difficult, super tough. I think you obviously got to like explore like different paywalls, different strategies. Some apps, like for example, like Duolingo, I know like they have really good like onboarding, and I'm not so good on that at the moment, but I still got a lot of room to improve and a lot of room to learn. So that's really what I identified about the growth. It's relatively easy to get users
Yeah.
to go into your app, especially through like the content that you push forward on like your own socials, for example, for me on Twitter. But getting them to convert into customers is a different story.
Hey everyone, Spencer here, founder of Niche Pursuits. Are you adding a new internal link pointing to each article you publish? You should be. Ever find it time-consuming and a bit overwhelming? Remembering what content you publish and deciding which anchor text to use can be a real headache. What if there was a better way? Well, that's exactly why I created Link Whisper. Simply click Add Inbound Internal Links, and Link Whisper will scan your site in seconds and suggest the most relevant links with appropriate anchor text for your new article. Now simply check the box next to the internal links you want to add, and Link Whisper will add these links for you. No need to go into each article, edit, and add the link. It's already done. No more manual internal link building or guesswork. Just efficient, accurate linking that saves you time and improves your SEO. Transform your content strategy with Link Whisper. Start linking smarter, not harder. Use the coupon code podcast for $15 off. Head over to linkwhisper.com and use coupon code podcast to get $15 off.
What types of things are you kind of interested in maybe trying from that standpoint? You talked about Duolingo, and I'm thinking about some image editing apps that I've used before, and they have a lot of like different upsells and things like that, different things I could add on, maybe not even a subscription, maybe a one-time payment. Like, do you have any ideas about anything else? Are you going to try anything else in terms of monetization, and any ideas that you're going to be giving it a shot?
Right, for sure. Just up the top of my head, I'm thinking of just bumping up the price. Charging higher. I know like a couple stories about like charging higher. Just like it doesn't really like harm the product too much, because you ultimately just find like the right person who's willing to pay for the value that you're giving. And to justify like bumping the price higher, you gotta add like more features to the pro plan. Just bump up the value of the pro plan so people understand that they're paying for a higher price for a higher value than originally. About like one-time payments and stuff like that. That's also something I'm looking into right now.
Yeah.
And about like onboarding flows, screens like that. Currently, text by image, I just have like when they hit like the limit of 2 images, they just get bumped to the paywall. But I'm just exploring like different onboarding strategies, looking at like some other apps about how they like convert the users into paid customers. And subscriptions, I realize it's actually really difficult to scale. But once you tackle like once you master like getting people converting from users into customers, subscriptions can really generate you a lot of revenue. And that's why at the moment I've really just been focusing on trying to get as many sponsors and as much monetization from sponsorships, because these give me like a lot of high ticket, like a lot of money in like one go. For the monetization, and it's pretty easy to scale this way. I'll say a bit more easier than subscriptions, but once you master the subscriptions, it really just like scales from like 1 to 10 and just like compounds on top of each other.
Talk about sponsorships. It sounds like most of them have come from your community that you've created on Twitter and your other areas of the tech community. What does a typical sponsorship look like? Like, are they paying for placement in the website, or is it something where they're also getting placed inside the app? What are the types of things that they're looking for? Are they just trying to get their product in front of a large group of people that are using your app, or they're looking for something different?
Right. So my sponsorships are in terms of ads right now. So I have 2 ad spots on my site. Number one is once you go into the app, there's like a banner at the top, and the second place is in the app itself. Below like the image generated, there's an ad spot over there, and many of the sponsorships are looking to leverage like the large user base and the large traction, hoping like some of the users can click onto their site through the banner and get more users to the site through the amount of traction that the app gets.
In terms of launching the app, it's been 6 months. Have you had to do a lot of work on it since you launched it? Have you been, pushing a lot of updates? Have you had a lot of bugs you've had to fix? Have you had a lot of user requests? Have you had to do a lot of customer service? Like, what does your time commitment look like since you launched it in terms of maintaining it, adapting it, growing it, and handling anything else that comes along with having a business like that?
Right, that's a great question. So throughout this entire process, I've been the full-time high school student, and I'm also just this app doesn't require like a lot of maintenance, because in terms of like the technical side of things, it's pretty easy to maintain. There's like not really many components, and it's a pretty straightforward app with a sole feature. And really like most of my time dedicated in terms of the technical side of the app, it's just making sure it works for more and more users, because the users count just like keeps increasing like crazy, and I just need to make sure like the app just like stays like up to date and like being able to handle like all this traffic. A lot of the time is also through like paying bills, checking out the bills that are generated from the usage of the app. And about like features, throughout this 6 months, I've added like a couple new features along the way. And really I've just been like sharing all this progress on Twitter and just documenting the journey. And through that, I'm also able to get like traction for the app and also build on my audience on Twitter. So throughout these past couple of months, I've actually really been focusing on growing on Twitter because I started to understand like the value of having a personal brand in this day and age. And I've also been building some other apps along the way as well. For example, like I've built this AI app called Bullet Pen that allows you to write essays while you just yap. So you can just like yap and then the AI will help you generate an essay in real time. So much of my time is really just spent on like making sure the app is able to handle like all this traffic. And I also spend my time like just sharing my insights, documenting my journey on Twitter, and just like building other apps and doing what I love as well. In addition to like schoolwork, homework, assignment, tests, and stuff like that.
And being a teenager and, enjoying some life on top of that and everything. So,
What's
yeah,
your
well, I'm going to ask you about your kind of how you manage it all here in a little bit. But sticking with the app, I mean, what are you thinking about this app for the future? I could see you saying something like, man, I'm going to really give this thing a go. I'm going to try to grow it, maybe sell it, maybe try to expand the user base, really try to introduce some related features and test out different monetization paths and all that stuff. Or I could see you say like, that's been a really cool project. I've really loved it. But now that I've learned what I've learned from this, I've got some bigger ideas I want to put my time towards. Because like you said, you only have a certain amount of time. Like where are you going to go with this app specifically?
Right. So actually right now I'm in the process of selling. So it's a really interesting story. Like 1 or 2 weeks ago, I thought about like the monetization. I thought about like the journey so far. And I think about like the monetization, for example, like it'll be better for like the hands of like different person with way more experience to help grow the app. And I just also wanna move on to like even bigger things and build like even cooler stuff and just really focus a bit more of my time on like different businesses and different apps as well. So and also like through like currently I have like this user base on text by image and I'm just getting a lot of traction. And I thought like I could explore the possibility of like selling the app, having someone like to acquire it. So I just thought about this. I was like, why not just try it and just give it a go? In fact, many things in life, like I just do it. Like I don't really like ponder too much on it. I just do it as fast as possible and just see the results and make my judgment based on that. So I made a tweet on Twitter telling people I was gonna sell my app, and I put my asking price for $50K US, and that post just blew up like crazy. Like right now it's like 2 million views, and through like the traction that post generated, like my DMs were like all flooded with like requests, with like interest offers, and I've been talking to some of these buyers, and I'm still in the process of like finalizing the details and stuff like that. So I'm about to explore the possibility of selling the app, and that's really where I'm really looking at right now, like the sell option. But for now, I'm honestly just see where things take me and just make my decision along the way.
It is so fascinating to hear how at every turn you keep going back to like, hey, this really building my personal brand, going through the things you already shared about how you built your personal brand on Twitter and how you built a following there and how you've gone about doing that. And every time you need something, every time you have a question, you go to that community you've created, and it seems like you always get a flood of answers, whether it's, I got a server bill, what do I do? How do I earn money on this? Well, I want to sell it. I was going to ask you, what's the process you're going through to sell it? And then I realized, I'm going to guess I already know the answer. He probably went on Twitter and shared he wanted to sell it.
Yeah. Also on Twitter, like one of the things about like building apps and businesses is that knowledge is super important. I've learned that knowledge is just like super important, and just acquiring that knowledge to build and scale your apps and businesses is super crucial. So that's why I've just been sharing. Like I've been in this space for like a year, and I've just learned so many things. I still got a lot of things to learn, but on Twitter, I also just share my knowledge and share my insights, so people can. I hope just to be like inspiration to, especially like people around similar age to me, like teenagers, maybe some people a bit older than me, who might want to get started in building apps and building businesses and shipping apps. I just hope to be like an inspiration. So that's what I do, like just share my knowledge, share my insights, so people can learn about like some of the things I did and some of the mistakes that I might have made, so they don't need to repeat that again. In addition to like posting like wins and posting bangers, so all these things contribute to building a personal brand on Twitter.
Going forward, all right, let's assume that you're able to get the sale of the app, over the line, and that happens. You're still in high school. You've got a lot of ideas, clearly, other apps to build, other projects to take on. Like, what's your time commitment? Where are you going to be putting your time towards, in the coming months and even years?
Right. So honestly, about the time, I'm not really sure about like what I'm gonna even build in like the next couple months. Because just thinking about it, like if for example you asked me this question in like August 2024, what I'll be doing in 6 months, I couldn't even have predicted like the text by image and stuff like that. And I've just realized like tech entrepreneurship, it just moves like so fast, and ideas just like come out of nowhere. So really, my time would just be trying to uh, just maybe building like a new app, um, like keep expanding on my current AI app Bullet Pen. I've just been doing pretty minimal marketing on it on Twitter, just posting about it. And right now that app has like, I think last time I checked was like 2K users, and I already have like around 20 customers. So there's definitely room to improve on that app and a lot of space to grow. What I can say for sure is that during that time I'll always like focusing on growing my personal brand and growing like my online audience on Twitter. Just having a personal brand in this day and age is just so crucial, because when you build new apps, build new businesses, you're able to leverage this personal brand, push your content out to like millions of people, and it's just so easy to like grow your projects, grow like your vehicles in this kind of way. So that's where my time will be looking at in the next couple months. And also in the next couple months as well, I'll probably be in the US attending uni. Uh, I'm not sure that how that would go, but just see where life takes me and just have fun with it.
I was going to ask you, so are you graduating from high school this upcoming, this calendar year, 2025?
Yeah, I'm gonna graduate in June.
Okay, so it's coming up. Yeah, so that'll bring a whole bunch of transition as well, on top of,
That's
selling
right.
your first app and all that kind of stuff. You mentioned Bullet Pen a couple of times. Just tell us briefly. I know we were really talking about the text by an image app today, but like tell us a little about that, what it does, and maybe any of the highlights of building and growing that along the way.
Yeah, sure. So Bullet Pen in short is basically an AI app that helps you write great essays while you yap. So you just yap about some random thing, and then in real time it helps you convert that into polished pieces of essay. And again, that app came from some of my problems that I faced day to day. So being a high school student, I completely dislike writing. I don't like writing essays, but oftentimes, most of the time, I have like the thoughts and ideas in my head, but translating that and articulating them while writing on paper, while like articulating those thoughts into a well-written essay is often pretty difficult. So I thought about it. I was like, why not just like have an app that allows me to just like yap out all my thoughts and ideas in my head, and it converts into an essay. So that's where Bullet Pen was born. Again, it was from my problems. And really some of the interesting things was that uh, prior to even launching the app, I was able to get like 300K views online about this app. And again, that's just through building a personal brand on Twitter, like just using my Twitter, my personal brand, to share about like the app, share about my progress, documenting the journey, and it's able to get like this initial amount of traction. And that's just showed to me like the power of like building an online audience to leverage it to promote your products. And right now, I've mentioned it, but with pretty minimal marketing after the launch, I've just launched on Product Hunt, and we got number 5 product of the day on Product Hunt. And right now, Bullet Pen has around 2,000 users and has around 20 customers. So I'm looking to expand it, keep building on it, potentially through creating content on like TikTok and IG Reels. Because I saw like some other apps in similar niches, and a lot of apps they use like TikTok and IG Reels to really scale the business and master the distribution on those apps. Like you can get like so many views on those apps, and that converts into customers, that converts to users, converts into customers, and converts into stupid amounts of money. So I'll be looking to try to identify and learn those strategies to master the distribution. I try to execute it myself on TikTok and IG Reels.
So I'm looking at Bullet Pen here. It's bulletpen.ai, and I'm kind of scanned down. I have to ask one quick question. Yeah, I know 20 customers, so not a ton of them yet. But 20 customers is great because, like you said, getting people from user to customer is a tough deal. Now you've got 2 plans, and one of them is $30 a month. And it's kind of the unlimited model, right? But then you have a different plan for $12 per month if you pay annually. I gotta ask, what are the 20 people going with? Are they going with the annual, or are they going more with the monthly?
Yeah, so half of them are going with the annual and half of them are going with the
Okay, half and half. There you go. All right. That's cool. One more question on this before we start to bring it home here. I mean, I've been taking notes here. You've got text by an image went number 1 on Product Hunt. You just mentioned Bullet Pen, number 5 on Product Hunt. You mentioned earlier Video Fest, number 2 on Product Hunt. You've got a knack for getting your apps to do really well on Product Hunt. Obviously, a lot of that is down to the fact that you're solving a problem that people have and you're packaging it up in a way that people can understand and make sense. But any other tips for people on how to perform well with whatever they're going to Product Hunt with?
Right. That's a great question. So a lot of the things on Product Hunt is actually, like, a lot of the results on Product Hunt is actually, I call it, you actually have to spend effort before the launch, even before the launch, to get a good launch on Product Hunt. And before the launch, that's through like getting the initial traction, getting the initial audience for people who might be interested in your app. And also, prior to launching a Product Hunt, while you're documenting the process of building the app and showing people like demos and stuff like that, while you're documenting all that online, you get to build up a sort of initial audience. And that, I cannot stress enough how important that initial audience is to help you get your first couple of upvotes on Product Hunt, like get a lot of upvotes on Product Hunt. Because you can use that initial audience, that initial following base. And what I've done for my first Product Hunt launch Video Fest, I remember was like, I was in Germany at that time and I spent like a couple hours DMing like 700 people to upload my app. So sometimes you really got super direct with like the promotion as well. DMing people, growing like your initial following base. So as you can see, like much of the work on launching a successful product on Product Hunt actually happens before launching, which is through building that initial audience. That will be super crucial for helping you get the traction you need on Product Hunt. And that's the work before the launch. During the launch, like when starting the launch, I often post like a demo of my product and I tell people I'm launching a Product Hunt. Because on Twitter, the way it works is that videos do better on Twitter, because I know Elon Musk, like he wants to push like Twitter X to be like a more like media centric app as well. So if you post like a video, for me, I post like screen recording and like have my face in the corner. This kind of video really helps you get like more traction on the post itself, and just letting people that you're launching a Product Hunt. And also having that like wow factor in there as well. Like I also mentioned that I'm 17 years old, high school, when I wrote my Product Hunt post. So really mastering these 3 things: the video, the wow factor, and like the telling people you're launching a Product Hunt. Really mastering these 3 things while making a post that people are launching a Product Hunt is super important as well. I've seen a lot of other people on Twitter, like when they're launching a Product Hunt, they just put the link on there, and they don't even include like any video and demo and stuff like that. And that's not as efficient of a way to try to get like your traction that you need from Twitter onto Product Hunt.
Those are great tips. Man, Rexon, we've really gotten through this time quickly, and I just want to tell you, I'm sure you get this all the time, but it doesn't mean I shouldn't say it. Like, I'm just so impressed by how smart you are, by how well spoken you are, by how strategic you are for such a young age. I mean, I think everyone listening is going to be really impressed and really inspired. You got such a good head on your shoulders because you built something cool, but you're also have an approach to how you're sharing it and how you're building a community that's also really inspiring. I follow along with you on Twitter now and I get to see all that. So it's not just that you're building cool stuff, which is amazing in itself, but you're also sharing about it and you're giving back and you're building a community around it. So it's really impressive. I'm sure you've heard it, but I just want to tell you, it's really impressive.
Thank you so much.
So you are, if you're on Twitter, go follow Rexon. It's at Rexon_Wong. The website for the app is textbehindimage.app. We'll include all that in the show notes. I'll include a link to Bullet Pen as well. Any final thoughts, Rexon, before we let you go? Again, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me into this podcast. Like, I just always try to explore like different avenues for myself to just share like my insights, document my journey, and share like knowledge. And this podcast, I'm sure like we covered a lot of things in this podcast, and hope it will be a lot of value, and hope it's an inspiration for especially people around my age to just keep building what you're building, keep doing what you're doing, love what you're doing, and just keep sharing and shipping things online. Um, and and just for everyone listening out there, just keep pushing, and uh, you do great one day, and just enjoy the journey. Um, really like things are really unexpected while building businesses, and especially being in this tech entrepreneurship space. So just just enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey, and uh, yeah, just thank you so much for inviting me into this podcast, man.
You got it, Rexon. I'm sure we will talk again at some point. Good luck on the sale, and good luck on finishing high school and uni next year. We'll catch up with you again, but until then, thanks so much.
Thank you so much. When we're in the US, when I'm in the US, like we should definitely meet up.
Look me up. Look me up. I'm on the West Coast. It'd be wonderful.
Yeah, I hope to be in Cali. Like I applied to a couple of schools in California, and yeah, just when I'm in there, I'll let you know.
You let me know. I'm a UCSD alma mater, so good California school there. Pretty heavy in the tech, but hope to meet up. So Rexon, thank you again. Good luck with everything. Thanks for sharing so much. This is a great interview. I've really enjoyed it. We'll catch up soon. Bye-bye.
Catch up. Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening to the Niche Pursuits podcast. I just wanted to remind you that if you are ready to start building smarter, faster, and easier internal links, you should check out Link Whisper. You can get $15 off Link Whisper when you use the coupon code PODCAST at checkout. Head over to linkwhisper.com and use the code PODCAST in order to save $15. Thanks again for listening.